Welcome back to Courageously Kind and happy September! I
fall.
officially consider this to be fall season.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it yet.
No,
But
it's so hot out there still.
the pumpkin spice lattes are here, and I am here for it. September is also Craniofacial Acceptance Month. Woohoo!
Woo!
So in addition to raising awareness, talking about this, it's called Acceptance Month because it's a great way to be talking about kindness when it comes to those with craniofacial conditions.
So who better to talk to on the first week of September, Craniofacial Acceptance Month, than the queen of self-love herself, Miss Ashley from Cleft Love. Cleft Love is a blog, which we get into, we talk all about it, where she shares her journey being a woman with a facial difference and what acceptance looks like to her.
We had such an amazing conversation, and we are so excited for you to hear it.
Here it is.
Love it.
So excited. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
Oh, we're so excited. I was talking to Liz and it's like, I feel like we know you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we were like, we're just going to chat with Ashley. Like it's
Yeah.
no big deal.
No, it is funny. Like before I logged in, I was like, we haven't actually talked like in person, like and seen each other, but especially through video media and all of that, it feels like you can get to know people that you've never even met before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's been something that's so cool, I think, about the cleft and facial difference community is I've met a lot of people and actually I feel like I know them, even if, I've never video chatted. And actually there have been people that if I go on a trip somewhere, then they're like, oh, you should come stay with me. And I'm like, great. And I've never met them before. And I just stay at their house and
Yeah. Yeah. I
super
love
fun.
that.
Yeah. It's like very tight knit. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I
So
love it.
awesome. We definitely feel the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky.
Good stuff.
What?
Do you want to start by just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about Cleft Love and all that fun stuff that you do?
Sure. So my name's Ashley and I live in Michigan and I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. And when I was growing up, it was always something that was prevalent in my life, surgeries, all of that, but it wasn't something that I fixated on because I couldn't, because I found surgeries terrifying. I always thought, I don't know at what point I got this fear, but I was always afraid that I was going to die on the table in surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know if that rings true
Nope.
for you.
I feel it.
And so I was always convinced of that. So I never wanted to have talk about it or know anything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And also a big part of me was trying to just blend in with everyone else as best I could.
Mm-hmm.
And so talking about it just wasn't something I was comfortable with. I did sometimes, like when I was in elementary school, once a year, I would give a presentation for my class about my cleft. And I feel like that really was beneficial because kids tend to make fun of things that they don't know or don't understand. Yeah. And so my yearly presentation would happen and then we'd be good. And other than that, it didn't come up that much. And then maybe, I don't know, when I was in college at some point, I kind of went through this phase of really wanting to get involved somehow with the cleft community, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, I wonder if I can go on like a trip with a nonprofit or do something, but I didn't know how to go about it. So I just kind of like let that dream fizzle out.
Mm-hmm.
And then when, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago, I was in a grocery store, like doing my regular grocery shopping, and I look up and I see a baby whose cleft hadn't been treated yet in the shopping cart. And that was the first time that I had ever seen a baby with an untreated cleft in person before.
Yeah.
And it changed my life in so many ways. And there was a minute, I guess, where I had all these feelings I didn't know that I had previously, that I must have been holding inside of me. Mm-hmm. And so in that second, it occurred to me that I didn't know how I would feel if I'd ever seen a baby with an untreated cleft. Like maybe I would think it was gross, or maybe I would be scared or something. And then if I felt those sort of negative feelings, then how would that mean that I felt about myself, you know? And, but in that minute, I didn't feel anything negative. And in fact, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the most perfect baby I've ever seen in my whole life. And so it was just a very healing moment for me, I think, because then I realized that, you know, I've been perfect since the beginning too. And then I also had the opportunity to talk to the parents, or it was the mom and the grandma actually. And they, you know, I think it was really beneficial for them to see someone that was sort of on the other side of things. And so I realized then that there was sort of a need for a voice of someone who was in the cleft community that had been through it. And so I joined a cleft mom support group, and I just kind of like lurked around and watched for a while. And then I started posting about my life, and the support I got was overwhelming. And so then from there, I decided to start Cleft Love, which was a blog. It started as a Facebook blog, actually. And I was very resistant to switching over to any other social media platforms. So because I was convinced that if I posted in both places, that engagement would go down in one. But anyway, so I finally got on the Instagram train and the TikTok train. And so it's been really fun exploring those mediums too, because now there's sort of a video element. But that's my very long-winded story of how it all started and what got me here. So
I love it. That kind of brings us to like an interesting point that we wanted to talk about that Liz brought up when we were talking about chatting with you. And that is using social media while having a facial difference and all the complexities that come along with that. And Liz can speak more to that than I can, but yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of emotions and a lot of, at least for me, a lot of resistance and fear with using social media, you know. And I think everyone, whether you have a facial difference or not, we all kind of struggle with it a little bit, but I think having a difference makes it heightened. How do you navigate those fears and those hesitant moments?
that is a really great question. And let me think. There are sort of 2 points related to that. So first of all, the first time I posted in Cleft Love on the blog, I told no one except for my parents. And then there was one mom that I had connected with. So I just didn't tell anyone about it, because before I posted, I had no idea what side of the internet I was going to end up on. And there are some dark places that you don't want to end up on. And so I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was really scared. I think I literally like kind of like closed my eyes and just hit, you know, like I was like, I don't know. And I found like, so it's probably been 5 or 6 years, 5 years now, since I started that. And the support I have received is overwhelming. And only once has it really, I think like on Facebook, I used to run like sponsored posts sometimes just to, because it was harder to get new people to engage with content, unlike Instagram and TikTok. And so one time, one of those ended up on the wrong side, and I was like, "Oh goodness!" Like, thank goodness that doesn't happen all the time, you know, because it's rough. But also, I will say, I admit that I have a level of privilege, I think, within the facial difference community, because especially in photos and I think on video, it's harder to tell that I have a difference. And so I don't know if that allows me some sort of, I don't know, like less negativity that comes towards me. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
No, totally. Yeah.
And actually that's a thing that sometimes I think is intimidating, because I think in person it's more noticeable. And so if I've only ever interacted with someone online, like online dating or something like that, that it makes me nervous to see someone in person, because you know, I think it's much more hidden anyway.
Yeah, I totally get that. And even too, like with masks, wearing masks.
Mm.
Oh my gosh. It was great putting it on, but it was so scary taking it off.
So I work in the schools, and actually the public school that I work in is still requiring masks. And so I'm trying to think if I have some kids that like I've never actually seen without my mask on.
Yeah.
And yes, it's nice to have it when you're at the grocery store and you're never going to see those people again, because you get to kind of experience the world as like someone without a difference. But then if it's someone that you interact with regularly, especially there's sort of like that joke going around where people call it like mask fishing, right? And I was always
thing.
yeah. So like, and even not related to difference, but people would be like, oh, like that guy looked so hot with his mask on, and then he took it off. I was like, ooh. And so then I'm like, oh my goodness, like, so, it just kind of adds to the, and there was actually a trend on TikTok for a while when masks no longer became mandatory in a lot of schools, and people were talking about seeing their teachers for the first time, and they were like, oh my gosh, they're so ugly. And I was like, so way to feed into my insecurities.
Even as a person without a facial difference, I definitely felt some nervousness around like, are people gonna like see me differently now that they know what I really look like? And again, with the internet thing too, like, do I look different in like I think I look different in photos than I do in real life? Like, it's weird, complex.
Definitely complex. What's the scariest thing, Liz, for you when you started posting? And like, did you have a moment when you guys first started posting that, you were like, I don't know if I want to do this?
Like when we started, I was pretty comfortable with the way I looked. I was pretty comfortable. At first, it was only our friends and family that were like following us and all.
Yeah.
And so that was like, oh, they all know what I look like. Like I can share my appearance with them, and it's not a surprise or it's not different to them. But my voice is different. It's something that I was insecure about for a very long time. Not speaking clearly, not being able, not having other people understand me. And so that was the scariest thing for me, I think. How would people react?
And have you found, I mean, it seems like on TikTok, overwhelmingly people are very positive and have, embraced you. Like, are there ever, like, was there a certain video that ended up in the wrong place? Or like, if you do get a stream of negative comments, do you ever have to take a break?
We've been very, very lucky. We're very lucky to be met with such kindness. But we found kind of the worst places on TikTok live streams.
Really?
And I think maybe that is because like it's not our normal like people that are following us and seeing us. It's total strangers, and we're just popping up in their feed, and they don't know anything about us or what we do. But
we did a couple of those, and then we were like, oh, maybe this isn't really beneficial for us right now.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, and that is interesting. I didn't realize that about the lives, that they're, a way to project yourselves into the masses that don't already, which is probably why people do it, because then potentially you can get more followers. But that is interesting and unfortunate, but good that it's been overwhelmingly positive on the whole.
What about really you? What are your favorite outlets?
Something I miss that I do less of now is when I was really focused on my Facebook blog, it was a lot of writing. And I found that was a way to be really vulnerable. And honestly, it was a way for me to process a lot, because often what I posted was information or ideas that I had never shared with my family or my best friends, and sometimes not even like with myself, and so some of that was me processing through it for the first time right then and there. And I feel like that was really a beneficial way to, I don't know, just explore all of this and for me to find healing. And I mean, I do find making videos fun, and I think, you know, like that's been really fun, but I think sometimes I lose the sort of, I don't know, the deepness, depth of what I used to post online. So I have to try to find a medium. I feel like a happy medium between the two, because I do miss writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I totally get that. It's hard to go super deep in like a 1 minute video, you know?
Right. And I actually find that some of the videos that do the best are, you know, things that like, you know, you put text on the screen of like maybe something negative that you've heard before, and then like the audio is you know, saying, oh, like I'm ignoring that or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like those do the best, but then it sort of reduces the experience to like, oh, I'm always getting negative comments and I just ignore them. But like, I'm not always getting negative comments. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's
Yeah.
not the like whole of my experience. So when those do well. So anyway, it's definitely complicated, and I'm trying to find sort of what I want to be putting out there, making sure that I'm putting out the whole picture. Cause that was something when I first started all of this that I made sure to tell myself I am always going to be honest about this journey, because there are some lows, but there are also highs, you know, like you meet amazing people and you build strength and resilience and all of those things. And so anyway, I wanted to make sure that I shared those highs, but also the lows. And I think when I started, I was nervous to share some of the lows, because I think for a lot of parents, when their babies are born, they go through the initial surgeries and then they're done for a lot of years. And there's all this talk like, oh, they're not going to remember it and everything's going to be fine. And they don't even know that they have a cleft. And so I was a little nervous in the beginning to post some of those more low points of the journey, and that it isn't just a surgery that they'll never remember again. You know, like there are lasting effects if you are put under anesthesia when you're 3 months old, or, you know, like just having such invasive procedures done to you before you're, you know, prelingually, before you have any language, is really impactful. So anyway, that was something that I was worried about posting in the beginning, but that I really wanted to make sure that I did, because it's important to embody the whole experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you said about being honest about it and sharing both the highs and the lows. And we talked about this before, just casually. When we share our stories, we're often, it kind of feels like these journalists or reporters or content creators kind of like come out of the woodwork and find you and want to interview you, want to tell your story. And I know we talked about how do you navigate that journey and all of those requests, because that can be a lot.
Yeah, because it's hard, because in some way you want to get the message out there, but I never want it to be put out in a salacious manner. And so actually on Monday, I'm meeting with someone because they reached out to me and I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. And so I said I wanted to meet with them beforehand, but I've turned down other ones because I don't want to be clickbait. Like, I don't want someone to show my baby picture and be like, what does she look like now? You know? And so I really, it is really hard. And yeah, like, cause in some ways I'm like, well, you know, like, is any publicity bad publicity? Right. But it's really hard. And I don't know that I necessarily have the answer or if I'm navigating it correctly. Most of the time I turn those opportunities down. And actually I'm grateful for my connections at Smile Train too, because like early on when I started getting those, I sort of went to them and I was like, hey, I don't know if you can ask your like marketing team or whatever if they know about this organization and like if they have a feeling that it could turn out to be something I don't want it to be. Yeah. And I'm also curious about those like producers who reach out. I mean, because I am a consumer of the reality TV shows on some of those networks,
Mhm.
and I'm fine being a consumer of them, but I don't necessarily want to be the one that like people are consuming because they're like, I don't know. It is tricky, Have you found any, and I don't know if you can talk about it, but like any that you have been willing to participate in and that have been happy that they've reached out to you, or has it all been mostly people that seem to just want to capitalize on you?
Yeah, I think we found a couple that were very genuine, just a couple of articles and things like that I've worked on, and thank God, like none of my words were twisted or manipulated at all. It was almost like cut and paste what I said to them, which thank God. But a lot of them, I question their intentions.
Yes.
And I'm all for representation.
Yes.
I'm all for, we need to get people that look different, out in the world. But I always question what is the deep motive.
Right.
And like you were saying, I don't mind consuming, but I don't know if I want to be consumed.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Especially when people are just like, drawn in and they just want to see like, oh, like how's she living now or whatever, on Snapchat, they always have those quick stories and they're always like luring you in because someone, I don't know, it has something different about them or, so it's tricky because I think we're on sort of the precipice of getting difference represented, more and more ads are having people with differences and all of that, but we're not quite there. But it's also something that I remind myself because all differences before they became appropriately represented kind of went through an in-between phase. So, like fat people didn't used to be represented anywhere on TV. And then when they started to be represented, it was skinny people, but in fat suits. And then we finally have gotten to a place where like, all different sizes are represented on TV and that's really great, but there's sort of like a growing pains middle point. And I kind of feel like that's where we are with facial difference representation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Kind of work through it, I guess. Yeah.
With the hope and knowledge that better things are coming, Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm optimistic.
I do.
think we can get there.
Yes, I think too. I think now more than ever, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like the consciousness is just collective consciousness. It's just at a different place than it ever has been. So
definitely. So you mentioned a couple times Smile Train.
Yes.
I want to hear about how did you get involved with Smile Train? What sort of work do you do now? Any projects you're working on currently? Give us all the details.
So all the details. So I first became aware, I don't actually know the moment I became aware of Smile Train. When I was a kid, I remember seeing I don't know, it was like a short documentary on TV about mostly cleft affected kids in another country. And there were people who had flown in on a mission and they were going to be able to perform the surgeries. But I remember it's kind of like made me sad just thinking about it. There were so many people who needed treatment. And because it was a mission, people had to be turned away because they couldn't operate on everyone. And that really stuck with me. And I was like, it's terrible that there are so many people who need access to this treatment and they can't get it. And I think my parents had been donors for Smile Train for a really long time. And what I love about Smile Train that's different than any other sort of cleft nonprofit that's out there is, instead of having missions or flying people in and then the people leave, what their goal is, they have a sustainable teach a man to fish model. And so basically they teach, the local medical staff, the surgeons, the speech therapists, everyone who are in all of the local communities, how to treat cleft. And so it's not just someone flying in, doing a surgery and leaving, because another issue with that is if there's follow-up care that can't be done, or if something goes wrong, like there's just all of these barriers. And so by having a local organization, then kids can continue to come and receive the treatment that they need. And like, then nobody has to be turned away, right? Because it's just always there. And Smile Train also they provide funding for the surgeries, they provide the training, but then they also have things called Smile Grants. So as we know, when you're born with a cleft, sometimes feeding is really challenging. And so, nursing isn't an option. And a lot of cleft affected babies are underweight because they're not getting enough nutrition. And so formula is what's needed. And in 2018, I went to Peru, and there was a baby there who was so underweight that she couldn't have her surgery. So she had come for it, but she couldn't do it. And so they provided her with formula, and the cost of one can of formula was more than a month's rent of one of the places, like one of the homes that I went to visit. And so they provide Smile Grants to fund things like formula and things like that, so that kids can have access to surgeries, which is really incredible. And so I became really connected with Smile Train probably 5 years ago. They started a Cleft Community Advisory Council after some marketing materials kind of were not done the best that they could have been done. And so it was started with the intention of sort of reviewing marketing materials to ensure that they're sensitive and appropriate. And so I've been on that for the last 5 years, which has been really great. 2 years ago, in 2020, they had their first Cleft conference. So it's for cleft affected people, and put on by parents and parents of cleft affected children and adults who are cleft affected. And they just kind of go into all of the parts of the cleft journey that people might be interested in knowing about. So I've participated in that for the last couple of years, and I'm working on a secret project that I've enlisted Liz is helping, but she doesn't know what it is yet, and I can't talk about what it is yet.
Secret.
It'll be probably released to the public in July. So so that is in the works. And then I'm actually headed to Colombia a week from today. So I'm really excited to kind of go there and see what the partner hospitals there are up to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's so exciting.
Cool.
So exciting.
It is so exciting.
Awesome. Oh, good stuff.
Yeah.
Secret project. That's exciting too. Stay tuned for that, everybody. So
Secret
exciting.
project.
Right. I love it. I think we covered pretty much everything that we wanted to cover. Is there anything else that you want to add, that you want our listeners to know about cleft affected people, about Cleft Love, about Smile Train? Any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. Oh boy, I didn't think about that. Closing remarks. I don't know. I'm so grateful to the world for being open to learning about people with facial differences. And my goal is always to be, who I needed when I was little, right? Like that's what I've always wanted to do. And then my goal is also similar to your mission, I think, is kindness, right? And for me, it's always educating with love. And, even negative comments, I always try to respond to with love, because I truly believe that's the way to, I don't know, get the world to change.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's my hope. My hope is more love, more kindness in the world, and more representation for people with facial differences.
Love it.
We love it.
We love it.
We are so grateful for you. I feel like you've been, like, I feel like I'm so glad we found each other on social media, because I feel like we're kind of like doing it together.
Yes.
You know, and I feel like we're all in this together. We're just so grateful to know you and to have you on the podcast and to have you be such an incredible role model for everyone. So
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. And I'm so glad that we connected too. And I love seeing other people who are out here doing similar work, right? Because the more voices we have, the better, right? Like, and to be doing so with, you know, the kindness that you put out there is so powerful. And I'm so excited to see like what you guys end up accomplishing and end up doing. And is your billboard, how are we going on your billboard?
Billboard is still coming
it's
along.
a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. It's gonna be a while, I think. But
We'll get there.
that might be like a 5-year, 10-year plan at this point. But
Put it out into the world, and
Yes.
it'll happen. I'm sure it'll happen.
one of these days.
Okay.
So silly. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just love Ashley. We mentioned in the video early on that it feels like we have known her forever, to be honest. We've only known her for a couple years, and that was the first time we've ever like chatted. But you get to know people within this community and form bonds that feel like they've been around forever.
And this is the beautiful part of the internet. I think the internet gets a little bit of a bad rep when it comes to community. Sometimes, obviously, it can be used in very negative ways. So we need to shed light when the internet is doing good and when we are able to use the internet to make these incredible connections.
Absolutely. It's good stuff. Hope you enjoyed this week's conversation. To find Ashley and all of her wonderful social medias, check out the description of this video. And have a great week. We'll see you back here real soon.
Bye.